Hello to all visitors of our today's webinar. Before we start, I would like to ask you to write in chat if you hear me well, if you see me well, so I may understand that we may start our webinar. Someone is typing. Yeah, I see. Okay, great. So, at first, thank you all for joining today's webinar. I know that for some companies there is a slight time difference. Yeah. So, thank you very much for joining us today. And from my side, I will try to do my best to share with you my knowledge about Ukrainian market, about Ukrainian prosthetic market, its registration, maybe some life hacks, how to enter the Ukrainian market. And actually, I also will show you how the general system of prosthetics works here in Ukraine. Before we proceed, a few words about me. So, I am the CEO of MedQuality Consulting Company. I have more than 9 years of experience in conformity assessment. I am an auditor expert at conformity assessment body. I've conducted more than 200 audits all around the world. And I'm actually one of the few persons here in Ukraine who is working with 3D printing devices and prosthetic devices. We have more than, here's on the slide 10, but actually more than 20 companies, 20 prosthetic companies. We assisted in the registration, in the development of technical documentation and quality management system implementation. Before we proceed, I would like to ask you if you will have any questions. Please don't hesitate to enter them here in chat. And also, after the webinar, you will receive the recording of this webinar, and you may ask your question after the webinar as well. So, before we start, I would like to show you this Ukrainian map. And on the map, you see these blue circles all around the different cities. Those circles are prosthetic companies, workshops that are situated in Ukraine. So the most of the companies, of course, situated in Kiev. Yeah, we have a lot of companies in Lviv, in Kharkiv, Dnipro, Lutsk, Zhytomyr, Vinnytsia. So the biggest cities are covered with the prosthetic workshops. And if we will talk about the numbers, yes, so according to the reports in 2025, so more than 400,000 devices were supplied under the state program, and more than 400,000 patients received their prosthetic devices. And if we talk about the market, we may see that according to registered data, $55 million is the capacity of the market on the first quarter of 2025. And it's growing from quarter to quarter because we have a growing market. For, of course, for the people it's unfortunately, but for business it's usually very good to grow the market. So if we're talking about the regulatory system in general in Ukraine, our current legislation, it is technical regulation number 753. It is a total equivalent of the MDD. So MDD was on the territory of European Union before MDR, and we have such regulatory system now in Ukraine. It's actually beneficial because the registration processes are slightly, maybe even not slightly, but significantly easier than in the European Union now. And but the system still, if you're familiar with the European regulatory system, you may tell that you're familiar a little bit with the Ukrainian ones. So we have like equivalents of notified bodies, like conformity assessment bodies that are accredited by the government, and they are responsible for class 1S, 1 M, 2A, 2B, and third class. For prosthetic devices, it's mostly about osseointegration implants. Yeah. We have also our National Competent Authority, State Service for Medications and Drugs Control. This is the authority where we apply with the first class products, which are the most prosthetic components, and custom made devices, which are ready prostheses, orthoses, and etc. What are the difference if we have the total equivalent of MDD? Why we could not just take our CE declaration of conformity and enter the Ukrainian market? That actually a very good question that I've received before the webinar, and I'm happy to explain it to you. So, except the technical regulation, we have a bunch of laws that regulates the language and customer protection. And according to those laws, we should have the separate Ukrainian declaration of conformity, which is drawn in Ukrainian language for a local customer. The same is for IFUs, labeling, etc. And we will talk about mistakes a little bit later, but this is actually the most common non-conformity from the authority. It is about the absence of Ukrainian language or Ukrainian conformity sign, because when I have met you mostly on the OT world, and when I communicated with some of you, you told me that we just sent our products to Ukraine without any registration. And sometimes it's possible, but the more we move, the more troubles it could lead to, because actually, according to the technical regulation of Ukraine, you should have an authorized representative, you should register your product in the state register, and etc. So if any of distributors of any of your customers tells you that there is no registration needed, be ready that distributor or a customer in future will receive the fine from the national authority who makes the market surveillance. Okay, what do we have also? We have also technical documentation. According to the law, it should be also in Ukrainian, but if we receive the market surveillance audit, we will have 30 days for translation. So from consultant point of view, we usually recommend not to translate full technical documentation, because the possibility that your distributor or your authorized representative will receive the market surveillance inspection is not so high. But still, they focus now on prosthetic field, so that is why we recommend, if possible, translate. But if you don't want to do this, you may translate it later. Then we have the same self-declaration process. So during for all first class and custom made medical device, we should apply it to the register and include our devices into this register. We will talk later about the timelines on registration. And of course, in European Union, you have authorized representative for foreign manufacturers. The same works for Ukraine. So if you even if you from Europe or China or United States, you still need the authorized representative who will be the resident in Ukraine. So to summarize, yeah, we have several procedures. You may see them on the slide. So most of them are about self-declaration, because most of prosthetic devices are first class or custom made, except the implants, of course. So, and for those two classes, first class and custom made devices, we have self-declaration. But what is the difference between first class and custom made? Yeah. So first class, it's mostly about prosthetic components. It is usually a serial devices, and you just register and bring them to Ukraine. If we talk about ready prosthesis device, yeah, it is like custom made with prescription. So we should to maintain special statement about issuing and delivering the prosthetic device to our patient. So this is the main difference. But in European Union, it is the same. And of course, we have those procedures of registration with involvement of local notified bodies, which are called conformity assessment bodies, in case of 2A, 2B, third class devices, etc. But you will be surprised that the timelines are not so huge, yeah, for a local market. So let's before we will talk about the timelines, I will show you how the market works here. So you may wonder who is your customer here in Ukraine, yeah, before entering the market. And I may definitely tell you that most of your final customers will be prosthetic workshops or clinics who assemble the prosthetic device or orthotic device or etc. So some of the big companies in European Union or United States or China, they have distributors, but actually most of the companies who order the prosthetics components are the clinics or workshops where it is where they assemble the prosthetic device. And then you may see this yellow rectangle, yes, state reimbursement fund, which is created by Ministry of Social Policy. And each prosthetic workshop or clinic, after they provide the prosthetic device to a patient, they apply for the reimbursement to receive money back. So the most of the revenue of the workshop is about the receiving the reimbursement from the government. And then when they receive the reimbursement, they may order more. So there are two possible ways of transferring of prosthetic device to the Ukraine or moving them to Ukraine, is through distributor or directly to a workshop or a clinic. So basically, it depends on the situation. Both distributor and prosthetic workshop or clinic may be your authorized representative. But from my experience, we usually take care of all documentation, those specific bureaucracy. We help to enter the market. And after it, it's just about the business. So you just communicating with the workshop, clinic. You do not need to establish a distribution company here in Ukraine to sell your products to the clinic. You may sell your products directly to this company who assembles the prosthetic device. And in this scheme, you will see that patient receive benefit because patient receives free care. Yeah, they receive free prosthetic devices. Prosthetic workshops receive money from the government through reimbursement program and state reimbursement fund. And distributor is like maybe, may not be. So it's up to you to work with distributors or not. So uh, why so? Because most of the big companies like Ottobock, Osur, or etc., they established their own company in Ukraine and they deliver to all workshops. This is working scheme for them because they make additional revenue on this charging to on the components to a distributor, and then they charge more to the clinics. So if we are talking about not so big manufacturing, yeah, 10 or 10 million products or etc., it is better to focus on working with clinics, because not all clinics and workshops in Ukraine are interested in money. Some of them, like Protest Hub, you may saw them on the OT World. Yeah, they are interested in good care for the patient, so they will search for the best prosthetic devices, because, for example, the state reimbursement fund, they provide the fixed amount of money that they may cover the prosthetic device. So in case of some of the companies, some of the components are expensive, they are searching where to find money to provide the patient better care. In each of this situation, the manufacturer of prosthetic companies is always receive benefit. Yeah, but actually it is more about how to make distribution. So from my experience, most of the companies works directly with the clinic. They choose big clinic like Protes Hub, like Superhumans, like Titanovi, or etc., like Unbroken. And then those clinics actually become their distributors. So other companies in Ukraine, they call for help. They call those companies and ask for the devices because they will try your product. And after it, they will order from these companies. So in this case, you should just to choose if you need a distributor or you will sell directly to a workshop or a clinic. Actually, we have even governmental clinics, so state companies that are actually prosthetic workshops as well, because all of the companies would like to receive the revenue, the additional value, yeah, the money from the provision of the prosthetic device. So that is why there are so many companies on this map. Yeah, there are so many cells because most of the prosthetic devices are covered by this reimbursement fund. So let's clarify the regulatory pathway to enter the market. So it is four major steps. First one is to, of course, to choose an authorized representative. It could be a clinic, it could be your distributor, or it could be just us, like a company who focuses on regulatory questions. Yeah, appoint the authorized representative. After authorized representative is established, you should prepare the local documentation. Usually, it is the responsibility of the authorized representative. We have provided a huge amount of documentation for the registration, because the components could be up to 1,000 list of different components. So we work with different prosthetic components, and local documentation should be prepared. This is the declaration of conformity, the labels in Ukrainian language, IFUs, and checklist. Checklist is like equivalent of general safety and performance requirements. So why do you actually need an authorized representative? So authorized representative is not like a company who just needs to be according to the legislation. Of course, it also should be according to legislation, but it's not just about having the company. Yeah, the authorized representative is responsible for a lot of different actions, like, for example, market entry, regulatory questions. Yeah, so according to technical regulation, you should have authorized representative. Then, what is responsibility of authorized representative except the registration process? Of course, it's post-market surveillance, claims, incidents, other feedback from the market. So the authorized representative collects this feedback, and this is actually could be a potential issue when your distributor becomes an authorized representative, because a lot of distributors don't want to inform you about some claims, incidents, or etc. But then market surveillance comes and makes a fine. So that is why the authorized representative, if we're talking about a regulatory company like us, we are focused on collecting those feedback, proceeding it, and giving it the results to you, and communicate with you about the future actions on the product that was affected. Then Of course, Ukrainian language compliance. Um, Firstly, you may think that it is very easy to, we just need to translate and send our products in Ukraine. But because of those funding and reimbursement program, yeah, our market surveillance and customs are crazy, so they are focused on bureaucracy. And for example, if you changed the name of any component slightly, for example, you have sent the black ones, yeah, but in the declaration of conformity you have only uh, white color, but the same catalog number, just color. It could not pass through the border because they will seek in for the black color in the declaration of conformity. So in the declaration of conformity, all Ukrainian language should be listed, all of the possible variations, sizes, colors, and etc. And of course, if, for example, and you have to put a label in Ukrainian language before it will goes to Ukrainian market, because when prosthetic companies will move through the border and you won't have any labels on the device, the customs may not let you to enter the market. So that is why the name of the prosthetic component in on the device, in the declaration of conformity, in the instructions for use should be identical. This is actually the most common non-conformity from the market surveillance. Then, of course, we are talking about the notifications, because we have actually a state approved form for all non-food products, where you should notify the competent authority within 2 days. And we have all those forms translated into English. So, in case of any trauma to the patient due to, for example, malfunction of the knee, it should be forwarded to a local authority. Now, after we have covered most of the registration process, let's talk about the timelines and mistakes. So you will be surprised because actually to we need just within a month, depending on the quantity of the components in the declaration of conformity, to prepare all necessary documentation. Declaration of conformity, instructions for use, labels, and etc. For example, if you have not more than 20 positions, we actually make the whole package within 2 weeks. So after signing the power of attorney, in 2 weeks you will have all necessary documents, and we apply to a local body. And competent authority, which is State Service on Drugs, Medicines, and Medical Devices Control, they process our application 10 business days. Sometimes they may request some additional documentation or to change something in the documents, and it will be additional 10 business days after we submit additional documentation. And if we're talking about the implants registration, of course it will be much bigger timeline, but it's still up to 2.5 months. So don't worry about registering for a 1 year, for 2 years. We are not a part yet of European Union, so we have a lot of conformity assessment bodies. We have electronic this register, so we may apply not in paper form. So that is why up to 2.5 months will take for the whole registration, even if it is implants. If it is first class or a custom made, I think 1 month is optimum period for the registration. And after the timelines, we are moving to mistakes. Those are not only like non-conformities, those are actually fines that were given to a distributor and to manufacturer of prosthetic components. So let's look more in more details on those nonconformities. First one is confusing serial or custom-made device. So sometimes it's actually connected not only with the clinic or workshop where the prosthetic device was assembled, but also with non-understanding of some persons in the authority. So we need to see on the components serial number, definitely, all necessary labels and conformity sign. So those are necessary labels, symbols that should be on the label of the prosthetic component. When we're talking about the custom-made device, we just making a statement, no conformity sign needed because it is made for one patient. So, but still, for a custom-made device, for example, finished prosthesis for exact patient, the label should be still on the device. So that is why it is still a little bit confusing, but should be clarified. Then, misclassing of the device. When we're talking about the implants, yeah, uh, the MDR classification system changed, but we still have the MDD. I will tell you about not prosthetic device, but something that we had in my experience of registration. So we have um, assisted in the registration of some device which was on the territory of European Union to B class. It could not have the instructions for use inserted because in Ukrainian technical regulation we have direct requirement that for devices upper than 2A class, the instructions for you should be inserted in the package of the device. So no electronic IFUs are listed somewhere in the technical regulation. But in Ukraine, these products was 2A, and for products that are easy to use, understandable, the instructions for use is not needed. So that is why we have made it to A class on the territory of Ukraine. So classification is a very important part of the registration process. Then this actually what I had experience with. So we did not receive any fines, but we had to help the European Union manufacturer from Germany to develop technical documentation. What did we see? So we have received the package of technical documentation, but inside this package there was no ISO 10308 reports, and for liners it did not contain ISO 10993 biocompatibility results, and we saw that ISO 14971 risk analysis was not updated according to the latest version of the standard. So there was no new version of the standards anywhere in the documentation. So before entering the market, any market, not only Ukraine, you should consider, you should check your technical documentation if you have all the reports, if you have a risk management file, what about your clinical evaluation, do you have it or not, and etc. So those are questions that should be answered, and those are challenges that you should accomplish before entering the market. And of course, one of the major and most common finds on the market is about the labeling and IFUs. There is no IFU in Ukrainian language. There is no conformity sign on the label. There is no Ukrainian language on the label. There is no information about authorized representative on the label, and etc. So those are the most common mistakes, the most common nonconformities that we have on the market. Actually, we yesterday we have published a new video on our YouTube, which is dedicated to the authorized representative functions. You may look on this video and ask your question, and I will gladly answer to them. So that's all for today. If you need assistance, regulatory assistance, if you have any questions about the registration in Ukraine, please don't hesitate to contact us. I'm happy to meet with you. We may establish a separate meeting and discuss all these questions. If you are seeking for a specific contacts, I may ask my customers. We have a lot of customers like clinics and prosthetic workshops, so just contact us and we will try to help you, because we are also I'm as Ukrainian, I'm interested in high quality prosthetic components here on the market, because I have friends in the military service, I have friends affected by the war, and etc. And we will glad to see here more and more high quality prosthetic devices. So I will give you 1 minute for oh, I see questions already. Are you able to help with the document translation into Ukrainian? Yes, of course, we perform it. I have a clinician in my team and two translators who works directly with medical devices, and they have a broad experience in prosthetics. So if you need any assistance in translation, we may do this, of course. I don't see any additional questions. Again, if you will have them after looking on the recording, I will glad to answer you. Actually, you may contact us on the phone numbers you may see on the slide, and most of you have my contacts as well. I have some question, but I will message you in WeChat. Thank you so much. Okay, let's see in WeChat. Thank you again for joining this webinar. I actually very glad that you are interested in Ukrainian market, and we will be happy to help you, happy to become your authorized representative and assist you in all steps and make those bureaucracy not so hard for you. Thank you very much. See you in next webinars. Bye bye.